6 months after the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire, the galaxy had settled into a new reality where humanity stood as one of the major powers. The transformation had been swift and complete, reshaping political alliances and trade relationships across dozens of star systems. Ambassador Lisa Parker stood in her new office on Station Alpha, humanity's first major diplomatic facility outside of Earth space. The station orbited the former Zephyrian capital world, now renamed New Geneva in honor of Earth's diplomatic traditions. Through the massive observation windows, she could see human ships patrolling alongside vessels from a dozen other species that had requested permission to establish a presence in the former Zephyrian territories. "The morning briefing, Ambassador," announced her aide, Lieutenant Colonel Janet Hayes, as she entered the office carrying a datapad filled with reports from across human space. Lisa nodded and accepted the briefing materials. Janet was a former Bay military intelligence officer who had transitioned to diplomatic service after the war. Her experience with alien cultures and military analysis made her invaluable in humanity's expanding role as a galactic power. "What's the situation with the Carillion Confederation?" Lisa asked, reviewing the diplomatic reports. "They've formally requested a mutual defense treaty," Janet replied. "Their ambassador seems genuinely impressed with our handling of the Zephyrian refugee crisis. They're offering preferential trade agreements and technology sharing." Lisa smiled at the irony. The same insect-like species that had laughed loudest at human primitiveness were now eager to form an alliance. The Carillions had been among the first to recognize that humanity's mercy toward defeated enemies was as impressive as their military strength. The former Zephyrian colonies had indeed been treated with unexpected generosity. Rather than enslaving or exploiting the conquered populations, humanity had established temporary administrations focused on rebuilding infrastructure and establishing democratic governments. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian civilians to repair war damage, while human diplomats helped former enemy colonies draft new constitutions. "Any word from Admiral Thompson's patrol?" Lisa asked. "The joint fleet exercise with the Altarian Navy concluded successfully," Janet reported. "Admiral Thompson reports that their ships performed well in combined operations. The Altarians are particularly interested in our tactical coordination systems. Admiral Chris Thompson had been promoted to command the new Terran Defense Fleet, a force that patrolled human space and provided security for allied worlds. The fleet represented a new approach to galactic military operations, combining overwhelming firepower with diplomatic restraint." "Ma'am," interrupted Communications Officer Gary Roberts from his station near the office entrance, "I have Commodore Morrison on the line from the Outer Rim Patrol." Lisa activated her communication system to see Jake Morrison's face on the screen. The former destroyer captain had been promoted to Commodore and given command of a joint human-alien patrol force that protected trade routes in the former Zephyrian territories. "Lisa," Jake began, using the informal address that their long friendship allowed, "we've got good news from the Rim. The joint patrol with the Veltaran Alliance intercepted a major pirate fleet yesterday. 14 ships captured, no casualties on our side." "Excellent work, Jake," Lisa replied. "How are the Veltarans working out as partners?" "Better than expected," Jake answered with a grin. "Their ships are fast and their crews are eager to prove themselves. They're still nervous about working with humans, but they're learning that we're not the monsters their government told them we were." The Veltaran Alliance had been among the most reluctant species to accept humanity's rise to power. Their jellyfish-like physiology made them naturally cautious, and their government had spent months debating whether to treat humans as potential allies or threats. The joint patrol operations were part of a carefully planned program to build trust between former enemies. After ending the call with Jake, Lisa walked to the observation lounge where Dr. Helen Brooks was waiting with her monthly technology report. Helen had been promoted to head the new Galactic Technology Exchange, a program that shared selected human innovations with allied species while acquiring alien knowledge in return. "How are the exchange programs working out?" Lisa asked as she joined Helen at the viewing windows. "Beyond our most optimistic projections," Helen replied with satisfaction. "The Altarians have shared their advanced sensor technology, which we're already incorporating into our next generation of ships. In return, they're fascinated by our gravitational manipulation systems." The technology exchanges represented one of humanity's most successful diplomatic initiatives. Rather than hoarding their advanced technology, humans had chosen to share carefully selected innovations with allied species. This approach had built trust and created economic relationships that made war less likely. "What about the education programs?" Lisa asked. "Even better," Helen answered. "We now have human students studying at universities on 12 different worlds, while alien students are attending Earth's major research institutions. The cultural exchange is creating bonds that will last for generations." The education exchanges had been Lisa's personal initiative, based on her belief that lasting peace required mutual understanding. Young humans were learning alien languages and customs, while alien students were discovering that humanity was far more sophisticated than their governments had believed. "Ambassador," called Lieutenant Colonel Hayes from the office, "you have a call from the Galactic Council speaker." Lisa returned to her office and activated the main display to see Speaker Alderin's ancient face on the screen. The elderly alien looked tired but satisfied, a marked change from the fear and uncertainty that had characterized his demeanor 6 months earlier. "Ambassador Parker," Alderin began, "I wanted to personally thank you for humanity's response to the Rimworld crisis. The Rimworld crisis had been humanity's first major test as a galactic power. When the Makari Empire had attempted to conquer a group of independent worlds on the galaxy's edge, the Galactic Council had found itself unable to respond effectively. Humanity had volunteered to lead a coalition force that stopped the invasion and negotiated a peaceful settlement. "We're pleased that we could help, Speaker Alderin," Lisa replied. "The protection of smaller species is one of humanity's core principles." "Indeed," Alderin nodded. "Your species continues to surprise us. We expected conquerors, but instead we found protectors. The galaxy is safer because of humanity's presence." After the call ended, Lisa stood at her office windows watching the traffic in the space around New Geneva. Human ships moved alongside, vessels from a dozen different species, all working together to maintain peace and security in what had once been enemy territory. The transformation had not been easy. There had been diplomatic crises, military tensions, and cultural misunderstandings. Some species still viewed humanity with suspicion, while others sought to exploit human generosity. But overall, the galaxy had accepted its new reality with remarkable speed. A soft chime indicated another incoming communication. This time, the caller was Captain Amy Rodriguez, who had been promoted to command the UES Valkyrie, one of humanity's most advanced cruisers. "Ambassador," Amy began, "we've just received confirmation from Earth Command. The new shipyard at Kepler Station is operational ahead of schedule. We'll be able to triple our production capacity within the year." Lisa nodded with satisfaction. The expansion of human industrial capacity was proceeding on schedule, ensuring that humanity would be able to maintain its military strength while supporting its growing diplomatic commitments. "Any word on the exploration missions?" Lisa asked. "The UES Discovery has made contact with 3 new species in the outer spiral," Amy reported. "All of them have requested diplomatic relations with humanity. It seems our reputation is spreading faster than our ships." As the day continued with its steady stream of reports and communications, Lisa reflected on how completely the galaxy had changed. The species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive savages now competed for human friendship and protection. Former enemies had become allies, and ancient conflicts had been resolved through human mediation. The galaxy had learned that strength without wisdom was merely destruction, while wisdom without strength was merely words. Humanity had demonstrated, both proving that they could fight when necessary, but preferred to build rather than destroy. As the artificial day cycle ended on Station Alpha, Lisa stood once more at her office windows, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were exploring new worlds, human diplomats were negotiating new treaties, and human scientists were working alongside alien colleagues to solve the galaxy's greatest challenges. The galaxy had underestimated Earth, and humanity had responded by becoming the very thing the galaxy needed most. A species strong enough to maintain peace and wise enough to use that strength responsibly. The age of human isolation was over forever. The age of galactic cooperation had begun. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Defender, watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was on routine patrol near the edge of human space, checking for any problems or threats. The coffee in his cup had gone. Cold hours ago, but he kept sipping it anyway. Space patrol was usually boring work, but someone had to do it. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Mary Johnson from her station. She was young, but good at her job. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she tried to get a clearer reading. Jake set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. "What kind of strange?" "Multiple ships, sir. Big ones. They're moving fast and heading straight for our space." Mary's voice had a worried tone. "I count at least 12 vessels, maybe more. They're not responding to our identification requests." Jake felt his stomach tighten. In the 50 years since humans had developed faster-than-light travel, they had never met another intelligent species. Earth scientists had always wondered if they were alone in the galaxy. Now it looked like they were about to get their answer. "Try to contact them again," Jake ordered. "Use all frequencies. Maybe they just don't understand our signals." Mary worked at her station for several minutes. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Finally, she looked up and shook her head. "Nothing, sir. They're either ignoring us or they can't hear us." Jake stood up and walked to the sensor station. The screen showed 12 large ships moving in perfect formation. They were still far away, but their course was clear. They were heading directly toward the inner human colonies. "Send a message to Luna Command," Jake said. "Tell them we have unknown ships entering human space without permission. Request immediate backup." The communications officer, Sergeant Tom Wilson, nodded and began sending the message. While he worked, Jake studied the alien ships on the screen. They were unlike anything humans had ever built. The design was smooth and curved, almost organic-looking. They moved with a grace that human ships couldn't match. Far away on the lead, alien ship, War Commander Vexthul stood on his command deck. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Zephyrians, had been conquering other worlds for over 1,000 years. They were very good at it. "Report," Vexthul said to his sensor operator. "We have detected the primitive vessels, War Commander. One small ship is attempting to communicate with us. Their technology appears to be basic." Vexthul made a sound that might have been laughter. "How basic?" "Their fastest ships can barely reach half-light speed. Their weapons are simple projectiles and energy beams. They have only 7 worlds under their control." "7 worlds," Vexthul repeated. "The Crystari had 50 worlds when we conquered them. The Stellar Alliance had over 200. These humans will fall in days, not years." The War Commander walked to the main viewing port and looked out at the stars. Each star system his fleet had conquered had made the Zephyrian hegemony stronger. Soon, this entire region of space would belong to them. "Shall I respond to their communication attempts?" asked his communications officer. Vexthul considered this. It was sometimes amusing to speak with primitives before destroying them. It helped them understand how hopeless their situation was. "Yes. Open a channel." Back on the Defender, Jake was still studying the sensor readings when Tom called out, "Captain, they're responding!" The main screen flickered and changed. Suddenly, Jake was looking at an alien face. The creature had large, dark eyes and gray skin. When it spoke, the universal translator did its best to convert the words into English. "I am War Commander Vexthul of the Zephyrian hegemony," the alien said. Its voice was cold and emotionless. "You will identify your species and surrender. Your star charts immediately." Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment humans had been preparing for, even if they hoped it would never come. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Force. You have entered human space without permission. Please state your intentions and prepare to be escorted to a neutral meeting point." Vexthul's 4 arms moved in what might have been amusement. "Your space? You claim ownership of these star systems?" "Yes, we do. Under galactic law. There is no galactic law except the right of the strong to take from the weak," Vexthul interrupted. "We are Zephyrian. We take what we want. You will submit or be destroyed." Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "War Commander, we don't want to fight, but we will defend ourselves if we have to. Please reconsider your course of action." "Defend yourselves?" Vexthul seemed genuinely amused now. "With what? Your primitive ships? Your basic weapons? We have conquered dozens of species far more advanced than you. You are insects compared to the Zephyrian hegemony." The transmission ended abruptly. The alien ships continued on their course, now moving even faster toward the human colonies. Jake turned to his crew. Every face on the bridge was tense but determined. These were good people, trained for this moment even though they had hoped it would never come. "Mary, track those ships. I want to know exactly where they're going. Tom, send another message to Luna Command. Tell them we have confirmed hostile aliens entering human space. Use Code Red protocols." "Sir," said Mary. "Based on their current course, they're heading for New Kansas." Jake nodded grimly. New Kansas was one of humanity's agricultural colonies. 20,000 people lived there, most of them farmers and their families. If the aliens were looking for an easy target, they had chosen well, or so they thought. Jake allowed himself a small smile as he thought about what the aliens would find when they reached New Kansas. Humanity had been preparing for this day for decades. Every colony, every outpost, every ship had been built with one thing in mind: the day when hostile aliens would come calling. The Zephyrians were about to learn something that many Earth generals had discovered throughout history. Sometimes the side with better technology loses to the side with better preparation. Set course for New Kansas, Jake ordered. Maximum speed, and send a message to Admiral Rodriguez. Tell her the game has begun. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez was in her office on Luna Base when the emergency message arrived. She had been reviewing supply reports, a boring but necessary part of her job. The red alert klaxon changed everything in an instant. Her aide, Commander, Paul Scott, burst through the door without knocking. His face was pale and serious. Admiral, we have a code red situation. Captain Morrison has confirmed hostile alien contact. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat, but her training took over immediately. She had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. How many ships? What's their heading? 12 confirmed vessels, possibly more. They're heading for New Kansas. Morrison tried to communicate, but they responded with threats. They claimed to be something called the Zephyrian hegemony. Lisa stood up and walked to her command center. The walls lit up with star charts and tactical displays. Red dots showed the position of the alien fleet. Blue dots marked human ships and installations. Activate First Contact Defense Protocol immediately, she ordered. Alert all fleet commanders. I want every ship in the sector ready for combat in 30 minutes. The First Contact Defense Protocol was humanity's carefully planned response to exactly this situation. For 50 years, human military planners had asked themselves one question: what would we do if hostile aliens showed up? The protocol was their answer. Paul's fingers flew over his controls. Across human space, warning signals went out to every ship, every base, every colony. Within minutes, the entire human military was mobilizing. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Karen Bell from the communications station, I have Admiral Chen on the line from Mars Command. She's requesting orders. Tell her to implement Barrier Formation 7, Lisa replied. I want the Second Fleet. Positioned between the aliens and Earth. If they get past New Kansas, Admiral Chen is our last line of defense. Lisa studied the tactical display. The alien ships were moving fast, but they would still take several hours to reach New Kansas. That gave humanity time to prepare, but not much. What do we know about these Zephyrians? She asked. Paul pulled up a data file. Morrison transmitted their first communication. Computer analysis suggests they're a conquest-based civilization. They mentioned conquering other species. Their technology appears to be significantly more advanced than ours. Lisa nodded. She had expected this. Any species capable of crossing interstellar space to attack others would probably have better weapons and ships than humanity. But technology wasn't everything. History was full of examples where the side with better equipment lost to the side with better tactics. Get me Captain Morrison on a secure channel, she ordered. A few minutes later, Jake Morrison's face appeared on her screen. He was on the bridge of his ship, and she could see the tension in his eyes. Jake, what's your assessment? Lisa asked. They're arrogant, Admiral. Completely confident. They think we're primitives who will surrender without a fight. The war commander seemed genuinely amused by the idea that we might resist. Good, Lisa said. Arrogance makes enemies careless. How long until they reach New Kansas? 4 hours, 17 minutes at their current speed. Perfect. Jake, I want you to shadow them, but stay out of weapons range. Don't let them know you're there. We need to see how they fight before we engage them. Understood, Admiral. What about New Kansas? Should I warn them? Lisa smiled grimly. Oh, they already know. Trust me, Jake. New Kansas has been ready for this day longer than anywhere else. Meanwhile, 300 light-years away, the colony ship UES Harvest Moon was approaching New Kansas. The ship carried supplies and new colonists for the agricultural world. Captain Ben Taylor had been making this run for 5 years. It was usually peaceful work. "Captain," called his navigator, Lieutenant Susan Green, "I'm receiving an emergency transmission from Luna Command. Code Red protocols are now in effect." Ben felt his stomach drop. Code Red meant only one thing: hostile alien contact. "What are our orders?" "We're to implement civilian evacuation procedures immediately. All non-essential personnel are to be evacuated from New Kansas within 6 hours. Ben nodded and turned to his crew. "You heard the lady? Change course for New Kansas. Orbit. Prepare all cargo bays for refugee transport. This is not a drill." The Harvest Moon changed direction and accelerated toward the colony. Ben had practiced this scenario many times in simulations, but he had never expected to do it for real. His ship could carry 5,000 evacuees if they packed them in tight. New Kansas had 20,000 people. 2 hours later, the Harvest Moon reached New Kansas. Ben was surprised by what he saw on his view screen. The colony looked peaceful and normal. Farms stretched across the continents. Cities gleamed in the sunlight. It was hard to believe that alien warships were racing toward this quiet world. "Open a channel to the surface," Ben ordered. The face of Amy Foster appeared on his screen. She was the settlement coordinator for New Kansas, a tough woman in her 40s who had helped build the colony from nothing. Her expression was calm, but determined. "Amy, we're here to begin evacuations," Ben said. "How many people are ready to leave?" Amy shook her head. "None of them, Ben. The colonists voted. We're staying." "Amy, be reasonable. These aliens have superior technology. Luna Command thinks a lot of things," Amy interrupted. "But they don't live here. They didn't spend 5 years clearing fields and building homes." "We're not running away from our world," Ben tried to argue, but Amy was firm. The colonists of New Kansas would defend their home. Ben finally agreed to evacuate only the children and elderly, about 3,000 people in total. As the evacuation proceeded, Ben watched the farms below. Something seemed strange about them, but he couldn't figure out what. The fields were too perfectly arranged. The buildings were positioned in odd patterns. It almost looked like, "Susan," he called to his navigator, "are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Susan studied her sensors for a moment, then her eyes went wide. "Captain, those aren't just farms down there. The whole planet is one big military installation. Those grain silos are missile launchers. The farm equipment is mobile artillery. Even the wheat fields have something hidden under them." Ben stared at the display in amazement. New Kansas wasn't just an agricultural colony. It was a fortress disguised as a farm. And if the aliens thought they were attacking helpless farmers, they were in for a very big surprise. "Get me Colonel Martinez at the Surface Command Center," Ben ordered. A few minutes later, the weathered face of Colonel Steve Martinez appeared on the screen. He was the military commander of New Kansas, though most people thought he was just the head of agricultural security. "Colonel, how long have you been preparing for this?" Ben asked. Steve smiled. It was not a nice smile. 15 years, Captain. 15 long years. And now we finally get to see if all that work was worth it." War Commander Vex Thull stood on the bridge of his flagship as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the viewing ports, he could see New Kansas floating in space like a blue-green jewel. It looked exactly like what his intelligence reports had said, a simple farming world with no defenses. "Sensor report," he commanded. "Confirmed primitive agricultural colony, War Commander," replied his sensor operator. "Population approximately 20,000. No orbital defenses detected. No military vessels in the system." Vexthul's 4 arms gestured in satisfaction. This would be even easier than he had expected. Sometimes primitive species put up a fight, making conquest more entertaining. But these humans seem to have no military presence on their colony worlds at all. "Begin standard conquest protocol," he ordered. "Destroy any government buildings. First, then demand surrender. If they resist, eliminate 10% of the population as an example." His fleet moved into attack formation around New Kansas. 12 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single shot. The Zephyrians had used this same formation to conquer dozens of worlds. It had never failed. On the surface of New Kansas, Colonel Steve Martinez watched the alien ships through his hidden command center. The center was built deep underground, disguised as a grain storage facility. Around him, dozens of technicians worked at their stations, monitoring every aspect of the planet's defenses. "Sir, all defensive systems are online and ready," reported Major Linda Davis, his second in command. "The aliens have positioned themselves exactly where we wanted them." Steve nodded. For 15 years he had been planning for this moment. New Kansas looked like a simple farming colony, but it was actually the most heavily defended world in human space. Every building, every field, every road had been designed with one purpose: to trap and destroy any invasion force. "Weapons status?" he asked. "All particle cannon batteries are charged and ready. Missile systems are armed. The orbital minefield is in position. Fighter squadrons are standing by in the hidden hangars." Steve smiled grimly. The aliens had no idea what they were flying into. "Wait for my command. Let them get closer." In space, Vexthul was growing impatient. His ships had been in orbit for 10 minutes, and the primitives had not even tried to contact him. Usually, conquered species at least attempted to negotiate or surrender. "Open a communication channel to the surface," he ordered. The transmission went out, but there was no response from the planet below. Vexthul's mood darkened. He hated it when primitives tried to ignore him. "Target the largest city," he commanded. "Prepare to fire a warning shot." His weapons officer began charging the main plasma cannons. The massive energy weapons could level a city block with a single blast. One shot would show these humans that resistance was futile, but before the Zephyrian could fire, the trap was sprung. Colonel Martinez gave the signal he had been waiting 15 years to give. "All units, this is home plate. Execute Harvest Moon. I repeat, execute Harvest Moon." Across New Kansas, wheat fields suddenly split open to reveal hidden missile launchers. What had looked like grain silos popped open to show particle cannon batteries. Farm buildings slid apart to uncover fighter jet hangars. In seconds, a peaceful agricultural world transformed into a military fortress. The first salvo came from the hidden orbital mines. Captain Jake Morrison, watching from his concealed position, had quietly deployed the mines hours earlier, using his ship's sensors to guide them. The explosive devices had been disguised as space debris, invisible to the Zephyrian sensors. 12 massive explosions lit up space around the alien fleet. 3 Zephyrian ships were caught completely off guard, their shields down and their crews unprepared. One destroyer was destroyed instantly. A cruiser lost its main engines. The flagship's shields dropped to 60%. "What was that?" Vexthul roared, his composure finally cracking. "Mines, War Commander. They seeded space with explosive devices. How did we not detect them?" Before anyone could answer, the second wave of the attack began. From the surface of New Kansas, hundreds of missiles streaked into space. These weren't primitive chemical rockets. They were fusion-powered ship killers, designed specifically to punch through advanced alien shields. The Zephyrian point defense systems tried to intercept the missiles, but there were too many of them. Explosions blossomed around the alien fleet, as missile after missile found its target. 2 more ships took critical damage. "Return fire!" Vexthul screamed. "Destroy that planet!" His ships tried to respond, but they were no longer in formation. The mine explosions had scattered them across space, and some ships were too damaged to fight effectively. Worse, they were now flying directly into the range of New Kansas's surface-based weapons. Colonel Martinez watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was going exactly according to plan. "Commence firing all surface batteries." Massive particle beams lanced up from the planet's surface. The weapons had been built into fake grain silos and hidden under artificial hills. From space, they had looked like ordinary farm structures, but each battery packed enough firepower to cripple a starship. The beams struck the scattered Zephyrian fleet with devastating accuracy. Another destroyer exploded. A cruiser's main reactor went critical and had to be emergency shut down. The aliens were learning a hard lesson about underestimating human ingenuity, but the biggest surprise was yet to come. "Contact on long range. Sensors," reported Lieutenant Mary Johnson from the bridge of the Defender. "Multiple human ships approaching from the outer system." Captain Morrison smiled. Right on time. Admiral Rodriguez had positioned a full battle group in the outer asteroid belt, waiting for exactly this moment. Led by Captain Tony Clark aboard the UES Retribution, 8 human warships now dropped their stealth systems and accelerated toward New Kansas. The Zephyrians found themselves caught in a perfect trap. They were surrounded by hostile ships, under fire from the planet's surface, and scattered across space with several vessels heavily damaged. War Commander Vexthul had gone, from confident conqueror to desperate survivor in less than 20 minutes. "War Commander, we must withdraw," his tactical officer advised. "We're taking heavy casualties." Vexthul stared at the tactical display in disbelief. How had these primitives managed to orchestrate such a devastating ambush? Their technology was supposed to be inferior. Their ships were supposed to be weak. Their weapons were supposed to be basic. "Sir, the human ships are demanding our surrender," reported his communications officer. For the first time in his long military career, Vexthul considered the possibility that he might lose a battle. The Zephyrian hegemony had conquered dozens of species through superior technology and overwhelming force. But these humans had turned those advantages against him through careful planning and tactical brilliance. On New Kansas, Colonel Martinez was receiving damage reports from across the fleet. "Sir, we've successfully disabled or destroyed 8 enemy vessels. 4 ships are attempting to retreat. Should we pursue?" Martinez looked at the tactical display. The trap had worked perfectly, but the battle wasn't over yet. Some of the alien ships were still dangerous, and there was always the possibility of reinforcements. "Negative," he replied. "Let Captain Clark's ships handle the retreat. We need to secure the damaged vessels and start taking prisoners. It's time we learned more about these Zephyrians." In space, the tide of battle had completely turned. What began as a routine conquest for the aliens had become a disaster. The humans had proven that superior technology meant nothing without superior tactics. And this was only the beginning. Lieutenant Commander Kate Phillips stood on the bridge of the UES Vigilant, watching the battle unfold around New Kansas. Her ship was part of Captain Clark's task force, and they had just dropped out of stealth to attack the scattered Zephyrian fleet. The Vigilant was a mining vessel, not a warship. Kate's usual job was extracting metals from asteroids, not fighting aliens, but every human ship had been built with defense in mind, and the Vigilant had some tricks that the Zephyrians weren't expecting. "Ma'am, we have a problem," called out her weapons officer, Sergeant Mike Roberts. "Our standard missiles aren't getting through their shields. Their defensive systems are too advanced." Kate studied her tactical display. The Zephyrian cruiser they were targeting had powerful energy shields that deflected most human weapons. Traditional military thinking would say they needed bigger guns, but Kate didn't think like a traditional military officer. "Mike, what about our mining equipment? Those cutting lasers are designed to slice through solid rock." Mike looked confused. "Ma'am, those are industrial tools, not weapons." "Everything is a weapon if you use it right," Kate replied. "Can we focus all 6 cutting beams on a single point on their hull?" "Well, yes, but do it, and prepare to launch cargo containers." "Cargo containers? Ma'am, those are just storage units." Kate smiled. "Not anymore. Load them with our spare mining charges and set them to detonate on impact. If their shields can stop missiles, let's see how they handle flying bombs." Mike stared at her for a moment, then began working frantically at his controls. Around the bridge, the crew started to understand what their captain was planning. They weren't going to fight like a military ship. They were going to fight like miners who happened to have weapons. The Vigilant moved into position above the Zephyrian cruiser. The alien ship was firing at other human vessels and didn't notice the mining ship approaching from an unexpected angle. Kate waited until they were in perfect position. "Fire all cutting beams, focus targeting." 6 industrial laser beams lanced down from the Vigilant. Individually, each beam was less powerful than a military weapon. But focused together on a single point, they created an incredible amount of heat and energy. The Zephyrian shields flickered and failed under the concentrated assault. "Launch cargo containers." The Vigilant's cargo bay opened, and 6 large metal containers tumbled toward the alien ship. Each container was packed with mining explosives, enough to blast through solid asteroid rock. The Zephyrians, having never seen such tactics, didn't recognize the threat until it was too late. The explosions tore through the cruiser's hull like paper. Secondary explosions ripped through the ship as the mining charges detonated inside. Within minutes, the massive alien warship was drifting helplessly, its main systems destroyed. "Target destroyed, ma'am," Mike reported, his voice filled with amazement. Kate nodded calmly. "Find us another target, and start preparing the gravity anchors." "Gravity anchors?" "Trust me." Meanwhile, on the surface of New Kansas, Marine Captain Rick Davis was leading his squad toward a damaged Zephyrian destroyer that had crash-landed in a wheat field. The alien ship was huge, easily 10 times larger than any human vessel, but it was also crippled and trapped. "Remember, we need prisoners and intelligence," Rick told his team over the radio. "These aliens are planning to invade more human worlds. We need to know their capabilities and plans." His squad consisted of 12 Marines, armed with standard human weapons that seemed primitive compared to alien technology, but Rick had spent his career studying military history, from ancient Earth battles to modern space combat. He knew that the best weapons didn't always win. "Sir, how do we get inside?" asked Corporal Jenny Walsh. "That hull looks pretty thick." Rick studied the crashed ship through his binoculars. The alien vessel had torn a long furrow through the farmland when it crashed. One section of the hull had been ripped open, creating a gap large enough for humans to enter. "We go in quiet and fast," he said. "Ancient Roman tactics. Find the weak point, exploit it, and use superior numbers to overwhelm them in close combat." The Marines approached the ship carefully, using the damaged wheat to hide their movement. When they reached the hull breach, Rick could see into the alien ship's interior. The passages were larger than human-sized, built for the tall Zephyrian frame. Emergency lights flickered in the darkness. "Remember, these aliens have 4 arms," Rick whispered to his team. "They might be stronger than us individually, but humans have been fighting in confined spaces for thousands of years. Use that experience." The squad entered the ship silently. The passages were filled with strange alien technology, but the basic layout was similar to human ships. Rick's military training took over as he led his team through the vessel, using hand signals to coordinate their movement. They encountered their first group of Zephyrians near what looked like the ship's bridge. 5 aliens, all armed with energy weapons that could probably cut through human armor like butter. In open combat, the Marines would be outgunned, but Rick didn't plan to fight in the open. Using ancient siege warfare tactics, he positioned his Marines at key choke points in the corridor. When the aliens advanced, they found themselves trapped in a crossfire with no room to maneuver. The Zephyrians' superior weapons meant nothing when they couldn't find clear targets. "Surrender now and you will not be harmed," Rick called out, in English, hoping their universal translators were working. One of the aliens responded with what sounded like curses in their own language. They tried to rush the Marine positions, but Rick's team was ready. Using flashbang grenades and smoke canisters, the Marines created chaos in the confined space. The Zephyrians, confused and blinded, were quickly overwhelmed. Within an hour, Rick's squad had captured 15 alien prisoners and secured the ship's computer core. They had used tactics that were thousands of years old to defeat technology that was decades more advanced than anything humans possessed. Back in space, Kate Phillips was continuing her improvised assault on the Zephyrian fleet. Her mining ship had destroyed 2 enemy vessels using industrial equipment and cargo containers. Now she was preparing to try something even more ambitious. "Mike, can we use our gravity anchors to grab that cruiser?" "Ma'am, gravity anchors are for holding asteroids steady while we mine them. I don't think—" "That cruiser is just a big metal asteroid that happens to have aliens inside it," Kate interrupted. "Can we grab it or not?" Mike ran some quick calculations. "Yes, ma'am. But what then?" Kate studied the tactical display. A damaged Zephyrian battleship was trying to retreat toward the edge of the system. If it escaped, it could bring reinforcements, or warn other alien fleets about human defensive capabilities. "We're going to play Crack the Whip," Kate said with a grin. The Vigilant deployed its gravity anchors, massive devices designed to hold asteroid chunks steady during mining operations. Instead of grabbing an asteroid, the anchors locked onto the damaged Zephyrian cruiser. Kate then ordered her ship to accelerate at maximum speed. The cruiser, caught in the gravity field, was dragged along behind the Vigilant like a massive projectile. Kate aimed her ship directly at the retreating battleship. At the last second, she released the gravity anchors. The cruiser, moving at incredible speed, slammed into the battleship with devastating force. Both alien ships were destroyed in the collision, taking with them any chance of warning the Zephyrian home fleet about human capabilities. "Ma'am," Mike said quietly, "that was either brilliant or completely insane." "Sometimes there's no difference," Kate replied. Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Human crews were using mining equipment, cargo haulers, and even repair tools as weapons. They were fighting with tactics borrowed from every era of human warfare, from ancient siege techniques to modern asymmetric combat. The Zephyrians had come expecting to fight primitives with inferior technology. Instead, they found themselves battling an enemy that refused to follow conventional rules of warfare. Every human ship fought differently, using whatever weapons and tactics were available. By the end of the day, the mighty Zephyrian fleet had been completely defeated. Some ships were destroyed, others captured, and a few managed to escape, but were too damaged to be effective. The Battle of New Kansas was over, but the war was just beginning, and the aliens were starting to realize that they had seriously underestimated the human capacity for creative violence. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood in the war room at Luna Base, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and tactical information. Around the table sat the commanders of every major human fleet. The mood was tense, but determined. "Operation Homecoming is authorized," she announced. "We're going into Zephyrian space to rescue the Alliance species and coordinate a rebellion. This will be the most dangerous mission in human history." Captain Jake Morrison leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, our intelligence shows the Zephyrians have hundreds of ships. We're talking about maybe 50 human vessels total. The odds are not good." "The odds weren't good at New Kansas, either," replied Captain Tony Clark from his position across the table. "But we won because we didn't fight, the way they expected. This mission will be the same principle on a larger scale." Admiral Rodriguez activated a new display showing the proposed mission plan. "We're not going to fight their entire fleet. We're going to hit specific targets using stealth and coordination with local resistance forces. Jake, you'll lead the main strike force. Tony, your ships will provide diversions and cover." Captain Morrison studied the star charts. The target was deep in Zephyrian territory, over 100 light-years from the nearest human world. If anything went wrong, there would be no rescue. "What about the captured Zephyrian technology?" asked Captain Anna Brooks from the Mars Defense Fleet. "Have our engineers learned anything useful?" "Dr. Webb and her team have made some breakthroughs," Rodriguez replied. "We can't match their weapons technology, but we've learned how to mask our engine signatures. Their sensors won't detect us at long range." She activated another display showing technical schematics. "We've also reverse-engineered their communication codes. As long as we don't get too close, we can impersonate Zephyrian ships." Captain Clark smiled grimly. "So we sneak in wearing their uniforms and hope nobody looks too closely." "Exactly. The plan is to penetrate their core systems, make contact with Alliance resistance forces, and coordinate simultaneous uprisings on multiple worlds. If we can free enough Alliance species at once, the Zephyrians won't be able to stop them all." Captain Morrison raised his hand. "Admiral, what about reinforcements? If this goes wrong, the Zephyrians could send their entire fleet after us." "That's exactly what we want," Rodriguez replied. "Earth's defenses are now fully operational. If the Zephyrians want to attack our homeworlds, they'll find them even more heavily defended than New Kansas was." The meeting continued for several hours as the commanders worked out the details of the operation. When it was over, Captain Morrison returned to his ship with a mixture of excitement and dread. The mission was incredibly risky, but it might be humanity's only chance to level the playing field. 2 days later, the human task force assembled at the edge of the solar system. 15 ships in total, including Morrison's flagship UES Defender and Clark's heavy cruiser UES Retribution. Each vessel had been modified with captured Zephyrian stealth technology and equipped with the latest weapons humanity could produce. "All ships report ready for departure," announced Lieutenant Mary Johnson from her station on the Defender's bridge. Morrison took a deep breath. Once they left human space, they would be completely on their own. Signal the fleet. Take us to faster-than-light speed. Destination: Zephyrian core systems. The human ships vanished into the void, beginning their long journey into enemy territory. For the next 5 days, they traveled through empty space, carefully avoiding any Zephyrian patrol routes. The stolen sensor technology worked perfectly. They remained undetected. On the 6th day, they reached their destination, the HFY system, home to the largest Alliance prisoner-of-war camp in Zephyrian space. Long-range sensors showed a heavily industrialized world with massive factories and mining operations. Somewhere on that planet were thousands of enslaved Alliance beings. "Captain, I'm detecting Alliance communication signals," reported the communications officer, Lieutenant Carl Fisher. "Weak and encrypted, but definitely there." Morrison smiled. The Alliance resistance was still active. "Can you decode the signals?" "Working on it, sir. Give me a few minutes." While Carl worked on the communications, Morrison studied the tactical display. 3 Zephyrian patrol ships orbited the planet, along with several cargo vessels carrying raw materials. A small force, but enough to cause problems if they detected the human fleet. "Sir, I've got it," Carl announced. "The Alliance forces are using a rotating encryption based on harmonic frequencies. Must be the Resonari. They communicate through sound patterns." "Can you contact them?" "I think so. The message will have to be simple, but yes." Morrison authorized the transmission. A few minutes later, they received a response. The message was brief but clear. Alliance forces were ready to rebel, but they needed weapons and coordination. "Captain Clark, are you ready?" Morrison asked over the fleet communication channel. "Ready and waiting," came the reply from the Retribution. "Begin the diversion. Draw those patrol ships away from the planet." Clark's ships moved toward the edge of the system, using their captured Zephyrian identification codes to appear as a routine cargo convoy. The deception worked perfectly. The 3 patrol ships moved to intercept what they thought was an unauthorized merchant vessel. While the Zephyrians were distracted, Morrison's team moved toward the planet. They had one chance to get this right. If the alarm was raised too early, the mission would fail and thousands of Alliance beings would suffer. "Launch the insertion teams," Morrison ordered. 6 small shuttles detached from the human ships and streaked toward the planet's surface. Each shuttle carried a team of human Special Forces soldiers equipped with weapons and communication gear for the Alliance resistance. Captain Rick Davis led the primary insertion team toward the main prisoner camp. His shuttle landed in a canyon, several miles from the facility, hidden from Zephyrian sensors. As soon as the doors opened, he was met by a group of Alliance beings. The leader was a Resonari named Zix Kala, a crystalline being that communicated through harmonic tones that the universal translator converted to speech. "Human soldiers, we have waited long for this day. We're here to help you escape," Rick replied. "But we need to coordinate with resistance forces on other worlds. Can you contact them?" Zixkala's crystal structure shifted colors as it communicated with other Resonari across the galaxy. Within minutes, Rick was connected to resistance leaders from 5 different species on 12 different worlds. "This is Captain Rick Davis of the Human Forces," he announced to the gathered aliens. "We're here to help you free your people, but we need to act simultaneously. If the Zephyrians defeat us individually, we all lose." The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Alliance forces had been planning for this opportunity for years. They had weapons hidden, sabotage plans ready, and detailed intelligence about Zephyrian military installations. "Excellent," Rick said. "Coordinate your attacks for exactly 1 hour from now. Hit their command centers, communication arrays, and weapons depots first. We'll provide space support where we can." While Rick coordinated the ground rebellion, Captain Morrison was dealing with a new problem in space. The Zephyrian patrol ships had become suspicious of Clark's diversion and were returning to investigate the planet. "Captain, 3 hostile. Ships approaching fast," reported Mary Johnson. "They'll be in weapons range in 10 minutes. Morrison made a quick decision. "Signal Captain Clark. Tell him to break off the diversion and engage the patrol ships. We can't let them raise the alarm." In space, the battle began as soon as the Zephyrian ships realized they were facing human vessels instead of cargo haulers. Energy beams and missiles filled the void as both sides fought for control of the system. The human ships were outnumbered, but they had learned from the battle at New Kansas. Instead of trying to match Zephyrian firepower, they used superior tactics and coordination. Captain Clark's heavy cruiser drew the enemy's attention, while Morrison's lighter ships attacked from unexpected angles. The battle was brutal, but brief. Within 20 minutes, all 3 Zephyrian patrol ships had been destroyed. But Morrison knew that their communications had probably gotten through to other systems. Soon, Zephyrian reinforcements would arrive. "All teams, this is Morrison," he broadcast to the surface forces. "You have 30 minutes before we have to leave. Make them count." On the planet below, Captain Davis and the Alliance forces moved with desperate efficiency. The rebellion had begun exactly on schedule, and Zephyrian installations across the planet were under attack. Prison camps were opened, weapons were distributed, and enslaved beings were finally fighting back. "Rick, we need to go," came Morrison's voice over the radio. "Zephyrian reinforcements are jumping into the system." Davis looked around at the chaos of the liberation. Thousands of Alliance beings were free, but millions more remained enslaved throughout Zephyrian space. "Understood, Captain. We're coming home." As the human shuttles lifted off from the planet's surface, carrying as many freed Alliance leaders as possible, Morrison's fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. The first phase of Operation Homecoming was complete, but the real work was just beginning. The rebellion had started. Now they had to keep it going. Engineer Paula Green stood in the hidden base deep beneath the surface of Vexus Prime, the former capital world of the Stellar Alliance. She had been working with the Delphinian Resistance for 3 months, ever since Captain Morrison's rescue. Mission had established contact with rebellion forces across Zephyrian space. Paula was one of 12 human xenologists who had been on exchange programs with Alliance species when the Zephyrians attacked. Instead of being captured, she had gone underground with the Resistance. Now she was helping coordinate the largest rebellion in galactic history. "The human fleet has jumped into the outer system," reported Kexnala, a Delphinian engineer whose aquatic body was contained in a mobile water suit. "Captain Clark's task force is ready to begin the liberation." Paula studied the tactical display showing Zephyrian positions throughout the system. 5 years of occupation had turned the former Alliance capital into a massive military base, but the Resistance had been planning for this day since the conquest began. "Signal all Resistance cells," Paula ordered. "Operation Rising Tide begins in 30 minutes. Remember, we need to hit their command centers first. Without coordination, their superior firepower won't matter." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. The rebellion that had started at Kethvar had spread like wildfire through Zephyrian space. Each liberated world provided more resources and fighters for the next operation. Captain Tony Clark stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Vexus Prime. His task force had grown significantly since Operation Homecoming began. Now he commanded not just human ships, but vessels crewed by freed Alliance species as well. "Sir, we have 6 Zephyrian cruisers in orbit around the planet," reported his tactical officer. "They're moving to intercept us." "Signal the Resonari. Ship Harmony," Clark ordered. "Tell them to begin the concert." The Resonari ship, a crystalline vessel that looked more like a work of art than a warship, moved into position. Instead of firing conventional weapons, it began broadcasting powerful harmonic frequencies directly at the Zephyrian fleet. The effect was immediate and devastating. Zephyrian technology relied heavily on crystal-based computers and communication systems. The Resonari frequencies disrupted these systems completely, leaving the alien ships blind and deaf. "Now signal the Vortani," Clark continued. A ship that appeared to be made of pure energy moved alongside the disabled Zephyrian vessels. The Vortani, beings of living electricity, had learned to weaponize their natural abilities. Electromagnetic pulses from their ship completely fried the Zephyrian electronics. Within minutes, 6 powerful enemy cruisers had been reduced to floating scrap metal without firing a shot. Clark smiled grimly. This was what happened when different species worked together instead of fighting separately. On the planet's surface, Paula was leading a mixed team of humans and Alliance species through the underground tunnels beneath the Zephyrian Command Center. The team included Chitresh warriors whose insectoid bodies could fit through impossibly small spaces, and Verdani specialists who could purify the air of poison gases. Nimbuans report that the weather control system is in position, announced Verthala, a plant-like Verdani whose leaves rustled with excitement. "They can create a planetary storm on command." Paula nodded. The Nimbuans, gaseous beings who lived in the planet's atmosphere, had spent years infiltrating Zephyrian weather control systems. When the time came, they could make the entire planet uninhabitable for the occupying forces. "Chitresh teams have reached the main computer core," reported Ziktar, an insectoid warrior whose natural armor had been enhanced with captured Zephyrian technology. "We can inject the virus whenever you're ready." The virus was a joint creation of human programmers and Chitresh bioengineers. It would spread through the Zephyrian communication network, destroying their ability to coordinate defenses across multiple star systems. "All teams stand by," Paula said into her communicator. "Liberation begins in 60 seconds. Above them, Captain Clark's fleet was engaging the remaining Zephyrian forces in orbit. But this wasn't like the chaotic battle at New Kansas. Now the humans were fighting alongside allies who understood each other's strengths and weaknesses. The Delphinian ships, designed for underwater combat, proved incredibly effective in the vacuum of space. Their torpedoes could change direction multiple times, making them almost impossible to intercept. The Chitresh fighters moved in swarm formations that confused Zephyrian targeting systems. Most effective of all were the combined tactics: human strategic planning, Resonari communication disruption, Vortani electromagnetic warfare, Delphinian engineering, Chitresh bioweapons, Verdani environmental control, and Nimbuan's weather manipulation. Each species contributed something unique to the battle. "Execute liberation," Paula ordered. Across Vexus Prime, the rebellion erupted simultaneously. Chitresh virus programs crashed Zephyrian computer systems. Nimbuans created massive storms that grounded enemy aircraft. Verdani fighters released toxins that were harmless to Alliance species, but deadly to Zephyrians. Resonari used their harmonic abilities to coordinate resistance forces across the planet instantly. Delphinian submarines emerged from underground, water systems to attack Zephyrian bases. Human special forces provided tactical leadership and advanced weapons. The Zephyrian garrison, faced with coordinated attacks from 6 different species at once, found themselves overwhelmed. Their superior technology meant nothing when they couldn't communicate with each other or coordinate their responses. Within 6 hours, Vexus Prime was free, but more importantly, the liberation had been broadcast across Zephyrian space. Enslaved. Beings on dozens of worlds could see that resistance was possible. The rebellion spread from system to system like a wildfire. War Commander Vexthul, now commanding the Zephyrian response from his heavily defended fortress world, watched the tactical displays with growing horror. In 3 months, his empire had lost over 30 star systems. Worse, each defeat made the rebellion stronger. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his tactical staff. "These species have inferior technology. We defeated them easily when they fought separately." "War Commander, they are no longer fighting separately," replied his aide. "They have learned to combine their abilities under human tactical leadership. Our standard conquest doctrine has no response to this form of warfare." Vexthul stared at the star charts showing the expanding rebellion. Red dots marked liberated systems, while blue dots showed remaining Zephyrian territory. The red was spreading, faster than his forces could respond. What about reinforcements from the outer territories? "Recalled to defend core systems, sir. But we're fighting on too many fronts. Every time we concentrate forces to retake one system, 3 others fall to the rebellion." For the first time in his military career, Vexthul was facing the possibility of total defeat. The Zephyrian hegemony had conquered dozens of species through technological superiority and divide-and-conquer tactics. But now their enemies had united under human leadership, and their advantages had been neutralized. Back on Vexus Prime, Paula Green stood in the former Zephyrian Command Center, now serving as the headquarters for the Liberated Alliance. Representatives from all 6 Alliance species were present, along with human military advisors. "The rebellion is ahead of schedule," reported Captain Clark. "We've liberated 43 systems in the past month. Zephyrian forces are retreating to their core worlds." "What about casualties?" asked Zixkala, the Resonari leader. "Surprisingly light," Paula replied. "When all our species work together, we can defeat Zephyrian technology without massive losses. Coordination is our greatest weapon." The Delphinian representative, Admiral Kexanala, activated a holographic display. "Our intelligence suggests the Zephyrians are planning a final stand at their home system. They're concentrating their remaining fleet there." Paula studied the tactical information. The Zephyrian home system was heavily defended, with hundreds of ships and massive orbital fortresses. It would be the most dangerous battle of the war. "How many ships can we assemble for the final assault?" she asked. Captain Clark ran some quick calculations. "Between human vessels and liberated Alliance ships, maybe 200 vessels. But the Zephyrians will have at least 500 ships defending their home world." "Numbers don't matter," said Ziktar, the Chitresh warrior. "We have something they don't understand. Unity. When 6 species fight as one, we are stronger than any single enemy." Paula nodded. The Chitresh was right. The Zephyrians had built their empire on the assumption that superior technology would always defeat inferior technology. They had never learned to fight enemies who were united instead of divided. "Signal all fleet commanders," Paula ordered. "We're going to end this war. Prepare for the final assault on the Zephyrian home system, the greatest battle in Galactic." History was about to begin, and for the first time since the war started, the Alliance species were confident of victory. The final battle for the Zephyrian home system began at dawn on a day that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after his success in leading the liberation campaigns, stood on the bridge of his flagship as the combined Alliance fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Before them stretched the most heavily defended star system in known space. Hundreds of Zephyrian warships formed defensive lines around their home world. Massive orbital fortresses bristled with weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. Energy shields protected critical installations. "Sir, enemy fleet composition is exactly as intelligence predicted," reported Lieutenant Mary Johnson, now serving as Morrison's chief tactical officer. 537 vessels plus orbital defenses. Morrison nodded grimly. The Alliance fleet numbered only 200 ships, but they represented something the galaxy had never seen before. 6 different species fighting as a unified force under human tactical coordination. "Signal all ship commanders," Morrison ordered. "Execute formation unity." Across the Alliance fleet, ships moved into a complex three-dimensional formation that took advantage of each species' natural abilities. Resonari vessels took positions where their harmonic disruption could affect multiple enemy ships. Vortani energy beings positioned themselves to maximize electromagnetic interference. Delphinian ships, with their superior maneuverability, formed the Mobile Strike Force. Chitresh fighters prepared for close-quarters combat. Verdani ships readied their environmental weapons. Nimbuans positioned themselves to control space weather patterns. Human vessels took coordination positions throughout the fleet. Their crews, trained to integrate the abilities of all Alliance species into a single fighting force. War Commander Vex Thul watched the approaching fleet from his command fortress orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld. Even facing defeat, he felt a grudging respect for the tactical formation approaching his defenses. "They fight like a single organism," he said to his aide. "Each species supports the others perfectly." "Orders, War Commander?" Vex Thul studied the tactical display. His fleet had superior numbers and technology, but the rebels had proven repeatedly that unity could overcome individual superiority. "All ships, open fire. Concentrate on the human vessels first. If we can break their tactical coordination, the Alliance will fall apart." The space around the Zephyrian homeworld erupted in fire as hundreds of ships began the largest battle in galactic history. Energy beams and missiles filled the void. Explosions lit up the darkness like artificial stars, but the Zephyrian strategy failed immediately. When they concentrated fire on human ships, Alliance vessels moved to protect them. When they targeted Alliance ships, humans provided cover fire. The fleet fought as a unified whole, each loss making the survivors fight harder. "Resonari Harmony ships, begin the symphony," Morrison ordered. Across the battlefield, crystalline Resonari vessels began broadcasting coordinated harmonic frequencies. The sounds were beautiful to Alliance ears, but devastating to Zephyrian. Technology. Crystal-based computers crashed, communication systems failed, targeting sensors went offline. With their enemies blinded and confused, the Alliance fleet pressed their attack. Delphinian torpedoes weaved through space like living things, striking targets with impossible accuracy. Vortani energy weapons overloaded Zephyrian shields. Kitresh bioweapons infected enemy ships with viruses that shut down their systems. Morrison watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Pride in seeing how well the different species worked together. Sorrow for the lives being lost on both sides. "Sir, the Zephyrian orbital fortresses are powering up their main weapons," Mary reported. "They're targeting our capital ships." Morrison made a quick decision. "Signal the Nimbuans. Tell them to create a solar storm." High above the battle, gaseous Nimbuans who had infiltrated the system's outer atmosphere began manipulating solar radiation. Within minutes, a massive solar flare erupted from the star, sending waves of electromagnetic energy across the entire system. The solar storm played havoc with both fleets, but the Alliance had prepared for it. Their ships were shielded, and their tactics adapted to the interference. The Zephyrian orbital fortresses, designed for normal space combat, found their weapons and sensors completely disrupted. "All ships, begin final assault," Morrison ordered. The Alliance fleet charged toward the Zephyrian homeworld, led by human tactical coordination and supported by the unique abilities of 6 different species. The defending fleet, confused and disorganized by the loss of their communication systems, could not mount an effective response. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships from both sides were destroyed or disabled. Heroes emerged from every species as individuals performed incredible acts of courage. But slowly, inevitably, the unified Alliance fleet pushed through the Zephyrian defenses. When the orbital fortresses fell silent and the last Zephyrian ships surrendered, a strange quiet settled over the battlefield. The war that had lasted 5 years was finally over. War Commander Vex Thule was brought aboard Morrison's flagship as a prisoner. The proud alien leader looked defeated and confused as he was escorted to the conference room where the Alliance commanders were waiting. "I do not understand," Vex Thule said as he was seated across from Morrison. "Your technology is inferior. Your ships are smaller. Your weapons are weaker. How did you defeat the Zephyrian hegemony?" Morrison leaned back in his chair and considered his answer carefully. "You're right about our technology. Individually, each of our species is weaker than yours, but we learned something you never did." "What?" "Unity. When different peoples work together, combining their strengths and covering each other's weaknesses, they become stronger than any single group could be alone." Vex Thule's 4 arms moved in confusion. "But species are meant to compete. The strong conquer the weak. That is the natural order." "No," said Paula Green, who had joined the meeting as the Alliance's chief coordinator. "The natural order is cooperation. When species help each other instead of fighting each other, everyone benefits." Admiral Lisa Rodriguez, participating via communication link from Earth, added her perspective. "War Commander, the Zephyrian hegemony failed because it was built on conquest and fear. Our alliance succeeded because it was built on cooperation and mutual respect. Over the following weeks, the former Zephyrian Empire was transformed. Enslaved species were freed and given the choice to join the new stellar alliance or return to independence. Zephyrian civilians were offered the chance to join the alliance as equals, abandoning their conquest-based culture for one of cooperation. Many Zephyrians struggled with this concept, but some, like Vex Thule himself, began to understand. The former war commander spent months in discussions with alliance leaders, slowly learning that strength came from unity, not dominance. Admiral Morrison, now serving as the first human representative to the reformed Stellar Alliance, established new protocols for the region. The Sol Defense Force was expanded into the Alliance Defense Force, a joint military organization dedicated to protecting peaceful species from future threats. Captain Tony Clark, promoted to Admiral, took command of the new force. His ships patrolled the borders of Alliance space, carrying crews from all 7 species: humans, Resonari, Delphinians, Vortani, Chitresh, Verdani, and Nimbuans. But most importantly, new defensive installations were built throughout the region. These bases carried a simple message that was broadcast on all frequencies in dozens of languages. This space is under the protection of the Stellar Alliance. All species are welcome to visit in peace. Trade freely, explore safely, and live without fear. However, any species that enters with hostile intent, any force that threatens peaceful worlds, any empire that seeks to conquer others, will face the united response of 7 species fighting as one. We have learned that together we are stronger than any enemy. We will not allow tyranny to rise again in this region of space.